Baseball in the early 19th century was still in its formative stages, with rules and equipment varying widely between different regions. Bats during this period were whittled by hand using hickory, ash, or maple and varied in shape and size. They resembled flat bats from cricket or short bats from rounders, which were popular bat and ball games in the early days of the Republic. The knob at the end would not be invented until the late 1800s. In 1845, the Knickerbocker Baseball Club codified the first rules surrounding baseball. They covered rules and decorum, but nothing about baseball bats. Rounded baseball bats allow for better control and power when hitting the ball, and by 1850 the rounded baseball bat had become near universal. However, flat bats were still used well into the 1860s for bunting. During this period, wagon tongue wood was often used for baseball bats. Wagons were usually made out of oak because it's sturdy and readily available. Most bats of this era were made of oak and thus very heavy. In 1858, the National Association of Baseball Players published the first set of rules governing baseball. These rules built upon the foundation of the Knickerbocker rules and would be used until the development of professional leagues in the late 1860s. Notably, the 1858 rulebook was the first rulebook to regulate baseball bats, stating that the bat must be round and must not exceed 2.5 inches in diameter in the thickest part. It must be made of wood and may be of any length. During the Civil War, players began to wrap cord or string around their baseball handles to improve their grip, sparking a trend that quickly caught on. In 1868, the NABBP updated rules stated that bats can't be longer than 42 inches, a rule which still stands to this day. Bats in the early days splintered easily because they were crafted from inferior quality wood. Nowadays, bat makers make bats with the grain of the wood going lengthwise down the bat, preventing splintering. In 1884, John Hilrich attended a baseball game of the Eclipse of the Professional American Association. During the game, star outfielder Pete Browning broke his favorite bat. Afterwards, Hilrich invited him to his father's workshop, a realm of sawdust, tools, lumber, and opportunity. Hilrich offered to craft Browning a new baseball bat. Browning carefully selected a piece of white ash, and under his direction, Hilrich made him a new bat. He worked tirelessly through the night until it met Browning's exacting standards. The next day, Browning hit 3 for 3. The word spread like wildfire. His teammates all wanted new bats, as did players from other teams. However, Hilrich's father was suspicious of this new venture. His woodshop had been producing stair railings, balustrades, and columns. He saw baseball bats as little more than a novelty. Young Hilrich persisted, however, and 4 years later, their Louisville workshop produced their first baseball bat, the Louisville Slugger. On the barrel, they branded a label that said, Hilrich & Son. They found themselves inundated with orders. Other companies tried to compete, but they lacked the artistry and craftsmanship of Hilrich. Furthermore, they continued to make bespoke bats for players, and other companies couldn't cater to the specificities of individual players. Hilrich discovered that northern white ash stood out as the optimal choice for crafting baseball bats. The finest quality white ash predominantly originates from the Northeast, benefiting from ideal conditions such as terrain, soil composition, and climate conducive to its growth. White ash offers the right balance of tensile strength and resilience, which coupled with its favorable weight translates into enhanced power and momentum. Hilrich would purchase thousands of acres of timberland across New York and Pennsylvania. In the late 19th century, ash became the preferred wood for use by baseball bat companies. Several famous sports equipment companies started during this era and began to produce ash bats soon after. Spalding was founded in 1876 and Rawlings in 1887. This era also saw the emergence of several novelty bats, such as the banana bat, the Spalding mushroom bat, Heine Gro's bottle bat, and the double handle bat. In 1905, Hall of Fame shortstop Honus Wagner became the first athlete to endorse a piece of sports equipment. He worked with Hilrich and Bradsby to make the Honus Wagner signature baseball bat. Bat weights during the early 20th century were generally very high. Ed Roush won the 1917 National League batting title with a .341 batting average. He used a 48-ounce bat, while Babe Ruth used a 44-ouncer. But by the 1930s, lighter bat weights were becoming more common. Lou Gehrig used a 38-ounce bat, while Hank Greenberg used a 34-ounce bat. Most players today use lightweight bats. Hitters such as Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani both use bats that weigh less than 33 ounces. By the mid-20th century, players began to skirt the rules. In 1954, Cleveland's Al Rosen was caught using a bat with nails hammered into the end. In 1974, Greg Nettles hit a single, but his bat split and the umpire noticed his bat was filled with rubber balls and cork. His single was reversed and he was ejected from the game. But throughout the 1970s and beyond, other players used corked baseball bats clandestinely. A collector had a bat owned by Pete Rose but not used in a game X-rayed and revealed that it was corked. Still, even into the 2000s, players were caught using corked baseball bats, including Sammy Sosa. In 1983, Kansas City Royals player George Brett hit a home run in a game against the New York Yankees. The run was overturned by the umpire after being accused of using too much pine tar. It is legal to use pine tar on the handle, but there are restrictions as to where it can be applied. The umpire nullified the home run and ruled Brett out, and the Yankees won the game. Ultimately, the decision would be reversed and the Royals would win the rematch. The 1970s and 1980s saw the first use of metal baseball bats. However, Major League Baseball had long since banned their use. They began to be used in college baseball in 1968 and have been the preferred bat in college and high school baseball because of their increased power and durability. The 1980s also saw the invention of composite bats, made with glass, carbon, and Kevlar fibers placed together in a plastic mold. Little League Baseball banned the use of composite bats in 2010, while in 2011, the National Collegiate Athletic Association created the Bat Ball Coefficient of Restitution, or BBCOR, which established safety standards for non-wood baseball bats. From crude clubs crafted by hand to mass-produced, finely crafted instruments, the baseball bat has become an iconic symbol of America's pastime. Subtle innovations in weight and material notwithstanding, the basic concept of a stick to hit a ball has existed for centuries. The baseball bat has changed little compared to the game itself. From broad sweeping socio-political changes, rule changes, strategies, and equipment, the bat has remained relatively unchanged. As the game continues to evolve, the enduring simplicity of the baseball bat stands as a symbol for the sport's enduring legacy.